All right. So we'll be starting the class now. So yesterday we were able to um, get a very rough introduction, okay, to what Expressjs is and how to start up a very simple Express.js server, right? We also need to create several routes, and then we touched um, route parameters and query parameters. Okay, that is adding dynamic parameters for our URL. So today we are going to be continuing from there, but today we are going to be focusing more on middlewares and static files. Okay, I've not started sharing my screen. Let me share it now. Yeah, yeah. Can you guys see my screen? Let's give it a thumbs up. Uh, okay, so today we are going to be going into middlewares properly, and then we're going to see the user experience how to start static files. So at the end of this class, you should need to understand what middlewares are and why they are needed in our application. And then you should also be able to create and use custom middleware functions. Okay, we should also be able to work with the middlewares. Okay, the Expressjs and also start static files using the express.static middleware. Okay, and then hopefully, what if there's still time, we also touch on error handling middleware. That's again. So what is the middleware? I was able to explain it yesterday, but I feel that I didn't do justice to it. So middleware is basically a function, okay, with access to the request object, the response object, and a next method that processes requests before it. They reach route handlers. Okay. So a middleware is basically just a function that we add to our request handlers, okay? So that whenever someone sends a request to our application, each middleware that has been added to our Express app or that each middleware that we've configured in our app will be the ones to process that request at each point or each stage in the flow. Okay. So a request coming into our application can actually go through multiple middlewares before it even gets to that our route handler. That is the one where we configured the route, let's say for root or slash about, you understand, or slash users. So before it gets to that route handler, it can go through a, a, a good number of middleware handlers. Okay. So, and these middlewares can have different functions. Maybe you can have a middleware for authentication that will just be, let's say, somewhere around here before the route handler is reached. So, let's say when you have a protected route, route that you don't want all authenticated users to have access to, you can just add a middleware somewhere around here, you understand? So that when the user tries to access that route, the middleware is going to check if they have authentication cookies, you understand? If it can find the authentication cookies in the request header, and it's now go ahead to like check if that cookie is valid and then proceed to pass the user to the next middleware. Okay. And for this middleware to, to pass that request to the next middleware, it has to call this next method. Okay. This next method is a function too. Okay. Or a cover function that to be called by each middleware, telling that request that okay, you can now proceed to the next middleware in the execution chain. Okay. Is that well understood, guys? Is that well understood? All right. Thank you. And there are different types of middlewares. Okay. There are different types of middlewares. We have the application level middlewares. Okay. So these ones are like the app that use middleware, which we use to configure um, other middlewares. So we used to add other middlewares to the execution chain. Or we have the app.get method that is like is app.get, app.post. I think we made use of those two yesterday. There's an app.get method, app.post method, and then use all of those ones to as our route handlers. So those are the application level middlewares. Then we now have the router level middlewares. Okay. So Express.js actually has an object called this router. Okay. So this router is used to separate each route, like have like a top level separation of each route. Okay. So let's say you are building something like a library, a library software, you understand? And let's say and users will be able to log in and then uh, users should be able to log in, okay? And then in your API, you now have like a router. And for each top level route, like say slash users or slash groups, okay? You can have each router configured for each of those routes. So you want to be like keep similar routes and similar logics together. So you don't want slash books mixing up with slash users. You understand? So you can now configure a router for slash books and then configure another one for slash users. You understand? That is actually the use case of this express.router we do it. Is anyone trying to speak? Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, so let me continue. Then you now have the built-in middlewares. Okay, so these middlewares are like the express.json, express.static. We are going to make use of all of these. So these ones are like the middlewares that came with Express.js. Okay. They will now have error handling middlewares. So these middlewares, we configure them to handle errors in our application so that whenever users perform operations that are not allowed or is an error in your application, it will not just return a 500 response code. Even with the 500 response code, you're also going to handle it, you understand? So that you also need to handle it using this method so that whenever and unexpected operations is done your app, you have 403 or 400 response to yes, and then you now have the third party middlewares like the Morgan, you have calls and then you have elements. So so each middleware does have specific purposes, you understand? request lifecycle. Lifecycle. So um, let me show you an example of the middleware. Yeah, we did before, and that's okay. So over here, I was able to mention that a middleware is just basically a function. Okay, my middleware is just a function that accepts the request object. I can let me check the response object and also the next callback method. Okay, that tells the middleware to send that tells Expressjs that it can now continue to the very next middleware in the execution chain. Okay, so this is sorry, I can't hear you.
Good evening. Please, I can't see your screen again.
You can't see my screen. Okay,
Yes, I don't know if it's
internet.
only me.
Yes. I'll fix it now.
Thank you.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, yes, I can see it now.
All right, thank you. So whenever the screen goes off, I'll just feel free to interrupt me. Thank you. So I was trying to write a very simple middleware function, you understand? So this is just a middleware. A middleware is just a function, you understand, that accepts these three arguments. Okay, the first is the request object, the second is the response object, and the third is the next object. You understand? So and you are not the one that is going to be passing this argument to, you understand? You will just define it with these three arguments. But Express.js is the one that is going to be passing these three arguments, understand, when it calls the middleware. You understand? So you just define it and then use it in your function without worrying uh, how it gets passed. Understand? So we do something around here. Okay. Okay. So this is just basically how the middleware works. So you just define a function, okay, and then you now tell Express.js using app.use my middleware. This is how you configure this middleware. Understand? Using app.use. Then you call app.use, then you now pass the function to function in this way. And so you're not going to execute the function. Understand? Remember that you're not the one that is supposed to call it. You will just define it and then pass it to Express.js. So Express.js is now the one that will call this my middleware. You understand? When the request comes in. You understand? So once Express.js calls my middleware, it passes this argument, and then you use each and every one of them. These two, you understand? You use both of them, and then once you are done, and you feel that the request can now proceed, you understand, to the next middleware, then you now call the next method, you understand? So that is just how simple it is to make use of. Okay, so this writes a simple login middleware, not middleware that just logs something whenever a request comes in. Okay, so first of all, we define our express, we import our express module using require. Okay, then after that, I like to write my express app inside the link function. Understand? So that then I now plug the main down here. Okay. Then inside this main function, I'll create the Express app. Okay, which is the only instance of this Express class. You understand? So then maybe somewhere here, I can now define my middleware. Okay. Login middleware. Okay. And this middleware will accept request, response, next method. Okay. So this is where we write our implementation. Okay. Then app.use login middleware is just that simple. And then now define another one, app.get, and it's a um, root and controller. Okay. This is also another middleware. Okay. But let me show you what I want to do with it first. So I'm now configuring a route handler, understand, for our route. So once someone tries to visit the root of our website, of our URL, we are going to one is trying to get, okay. How you guys are doing? Okay. So when someone visits the root of our application, of our website rather, so we want this this root controller middleware. This is also a middleware, you understand? But not just any middleware, it is a route handler middleware. Understand? Because I mean middlewares and route handlers also uh, have the also taking the same what is it called? The same number of arguments, request, response, and next. You understand? So they are just the same type of function. You just they do the same thing. They can do the same thing, you understand? But in Express.js, you want to um, separate different, you want each middleware to have its own use case, you understand? Separation of concern. So you know that any request coming into your application, this is to root, is basically going to be handled by this root controller. But if you have things like login, or you have, you know what login is now? You just something that will just be console, it's just going to be outputting to your console that okay, so request came in from this IP address, or this user tried to access um, this resource and then it failed. You understand? So it's just all of these things. That is what login means. You understand? Route handler. So and then this our route handler. Once the request comes in, you just send in a response. So just send back a response. Hello world. Okay? So not rest, it's response. You understand? But using rest would have thrown an undefined error. You understand? Please, if you are not understanding, just interrupt me, you ask your questions. Okay? Then this is now right implementation of this login middleware. Just something simple. Okay. So we want to log the date the user visited our application. So we want to collect the time each request came in. Okay. We want to collect the time each request came in and the method and maybe the URL. Okay. Okay. Then after we are done, okay, let's not call next yet. And let's start our Express app. Have the listen and get 3,000. Okay. And then Expressjs is running, but it's not, I didn't print anything out because we didn't configure it. Okay. Upload, about, um, 2,000. Okay. That's something simple. And now can I run the Express app? So the server is not running. It's it. So okay, we have our application actually raised an error, and for some reason we are seeing the error in the on the web page, which is not supposed to be so. Which is why um, you need to always handle the error. You understand? You don't want your users seeing these kind of ugly error messages. You understand? Because first of all, it's not the user experience is not nice, and then it can also expose security risk because I mean they've now seen all your um, they will now have an idea of the technology your app is running on. They've seen your what is it called, the patch. You understand? Basically, your file system, everything is just exposed. So you always want to handle errors appropriately in your application. So let's fix this. The error being through. We handle the error later. ISO string. Okay, I think it's capital N. Okay. Now let's do it again. Okay. So we just logged I'm opening a new page. This other one has lots to request. Yeah, Node.js is cool. I'll show you guys something. So we are trying to visit um, this our root, you understand? And we already have the root controller configured for it over here. And over here, we're supposed to have seen a hello world response. My screen has stopped sharing. Yeah. Can you guys see my screen now? Hmm? All right. So as I was saying, we are noticing a very funny, very weird behavior in our application. Okay, so let's debug it. So we try to visit the root, you understand? And over here, we've actually configured um, a route handler, you understand, which is this function called root controller. This one here, you understand? And in this root controller, the user is supposed to see this hello world message once they visit our, our application. Okay. But for some weird reasons, you understand, it just keeps loading, it just keeps loading. But then you can see that the login middleware actually outputted this message here. Let me visit it again so you see. always on top. Okay. Um, okay, see, you said the login middleware actually outputted this. You understand? So yes, you see it now. The login middleware actually gave this output. You understand? But then it's not showing us any response. Why? Debugging the code tells us that okay, it came into this. So when the request came in, you understand, the very first middleware, which is this login middleware, and you see where we defined it. We defined the login middleware before we defined this this route handler for root, understand, which is why this one was executed before this one. You understand? So now this one now gets called first. And let's scroll up. Login middleware. This. Okay. So in this login middleware now, okay, this is where we define the timestamp. And this is where we now call the console.log function. And we can see it here. So at this point, everything was good. Understand? But for some reason, he didn't go over um, to the very next middleware in the execution chain. So why is that so? It's because, can someone tell us why? Let me see if anybody can get it. Can someone unmute and tell us why he is not proceeding to this next, what is it called? This next video. Please unmute or you can raise your hand. Hi guys with me. Henry, um,
Sorry, sir, I didn't
Muhammad.
hear the question, sir. I'm having network issues.
Okay, the question is uh, we are actually having a very funny uh, behavior in this our Express app. Okay, so in this Express app, we configured a middleware called login middleware, you understand, just before the route handler for root. So now, on visiting, let me stop this. Yes. So on visiting this our website now, I click enter. You see that the login middleware actually gives us this output, you understand? But we are not seeing any response for this root controller, this response.send. We're not seeing any response here. It just keeps loading. So that's the question. So can you tell us, or do you have any idea why the execution is not continuing to the very next video, that is this one? So that's my question, Henry, and everyone of you.
So for me, I don't
Any
know.
idea?
I don't have an idea why.
Okay. So like I said before, the reason is because we did not call this next method. Okay? The reason is because we did not call this next method. And the function of this, and for every middleware that we configure in our Express app, we always give it at least three arguments. The first one is the request object, which contains information about the request coming in. The second one is the response object, which has information about the response coming in. And then the last argument or parameter is this next method, which is supposed to tell Express to continue execution to the very next middleware in our execution chain. Understand? And for this our app now, we have just two middlewares configured, which is just this and this. Understand? So we did not call the next method. We did not call the next method over here. Understand? We did not call the next method in this login middleware function, which is why after
Sorry,
login
sorry, sir.
middleware
I think your screen is frozen.
network is written. I see it now. All right. So without calling this next method here, you understand? Without calling this next method, we are basically telling Express.js that I don't want you to continue um, execution. Understand? I don't want you to continue processing this request. So don't call the next middleware in the execution chain. Understand? So that is why we did not proceed to this next middleware, that is this one here. So is that understood? Very
Yes, I understand it now.
right. Okay. Let's stop this. Running to start again. Okay. Let's visit this thing again. You see, okay, now you now have the output. We are supposed to see hello world on our screen now. Taking forever. Why? Okay. Okay, I did not save the file. I did not save the file. I did not save the file. That's true. I was wondering that why is not there. Okay, let's visit it again. Okay. So we now have our login middleware here. Yeah, we should see an output now. Hello world. You can see. Hello world. So we now have these two middlewares were executed successfully. And actually in this order from top to bottom, that is how Express.js executes its middlewares, you understand? It executes in the order which you have arranged them in. So if I should move this one down now, okay, that is, if I should move it, I should move it after this route handler, you understand? Let me see if Express.js will um, if it will log anything, you understand? Because I mean, we have the route handler which will give us the response. So we've seen the response now. Hello world, refresh, but it is not logging anything to our console here. You understand? It's not logging anything to our console, but we have seen the response on our website. So why is that so? See the same thing. Can you unmute and tell us if you are proving? Can I be heard? Can you guys hear me? Henry Nandi. I think my network is down.
We can hear you.
All right. So I actually asked the question and I was wondering if you guys heard the question.
Sorry, please, can you repeat your question?
Okay. So I actually rearranged the order of these middlewares, you understand? I rearranged it so I now have our route handler before the login middleware, understand? So on saving this and restarting our server, I now realize that visiting the web page would give us, would show us this hello world we've configured here, understand? It shows us hello world, but it doesn't log anything to our console. You see, our console doesn't have any text. So I was not like, why? I took that gone out today.
Is it because of the response method?
Not the response method, but the next method, the next callback method. Yeah, so you're close. I think, okay, the screen is back. So it's because of this next method that we call here. Because I mean, you are going to probably be facing this once you start um, defining middleware and stuff. The moment you forget to call this next method, you understand? This next method is what tells Next.js to continue execution to the next middleware in the chain. You understand? So after it executed this, without this next, it's not going to execute this or anything below. Understand? So you don't want to forget this next because you don't be debugging like this. You, you just continue to debug like this, your head will be paining you. We now have login middleware here now. Understand?
Okay, but I thought
Okay?
like yeah, I thought the computer runs code step like sequentially, like line by line. So
Exactly.
they need next for it to do something that's supposed to do.
Okay. So this next is actually the way Express.js is designed. Understand? So it's the way you configure this middleware using this app.use. I mean, you're just calling a function here. I mean, on startup, you understand, during initialization, the Express application is going to get initialized and all your routes get configured, you understand, the route handlers, the middlewares, and everything gets configured, you understand. So now, um, after the application has started running, you understand, during runtime, how does Express.js know which middleware is next in chain? So it just arranges everything in like a chain, you understand? It just stacks everything one before the other, before the other, before the other. Looking at this diagram, you understand? This is just how it stacks everything up. You get so so without calling this next, Express.js doesn't will not be sure if it should continue. You just you telling Express that okay, I want you to continue. You understand? You yourself, you don't want exactly, you don't know what next is. Yes, you don't know what next is, or you might not know what next is. But Express.js on calling this next, Express.js already know which method is next, so it calls this. So did that answer your question?
Yes, I understand it. Thank you.
All right. So I mean, you always call this next. This is just one of the core features of Express.js. Let's see, that is it for the login middleware, and then Okay. So we now have the path specific middlewares. So this middleware is only run for specific routes. You understand? So let's move this to um sorry, I just do want to rewrite inside this code again. Okay. Mhm. Um, well, let me just do this instead. Configure API router. Okay. So this will just um so this will be returning whatever router we configured here. Like okay. So now we want to create a route specific what's it called? Middleware. Okay. So how do we do this? You remember this express.router I mentioned before. So it's actually a way to separate each um, top level this thing endpoint. Okay. So once let me import it here. API router will not be top to now call the function. It's fine. So calling this function now will return this, understand, which is just this an instance of this router class right here. So why are we doing this? We want to define a top level endpoint, understand? We want to define a top level part, which is called API. And we want this API router to configure every request, understand? Every request that's coming in that is under this slash API, understand? It's going to get routed to this API router we've defined here, understand? You can also do another one for const configure user uh, router. You see, um, book router. Okay, so this would just be returning the same thing. Okay, so book router, configure book router. Okay, okay. Hope you guys are still with me. So here now, we are trying to configure route handlers. Okay, so we don't want to have to attach everything to this API dot get or API dot methods the way we did for this route. You understand? The way we did for this route. We don't have to come here now and say app dot get slash API. You understand? Then we will now come over here. We say app slash get slash books. You understand? So we don't have to do this. We want to separate the logic. You understand? We want to know that okay, so any request coming into slash book, you understand, is going to get routed to this router. So in this router now, we can now have a something like a middleware, you understand, an authentication middleware, so that we know that only authenticated users can visit this route, you understand? Authentication middleware. So just the authentication middleware, not middleware, you understand? Hope I'm not confusing you guys. It's just a way to say, okay, only authenticated users can visit this book route, this book um, router, understand? But for this API router, anybody can visit it since we did not add this auth middleware here. You understand? So we cannot add endpoints here and say book router dot get slash books. Understand? It's anybody that come here.
Sorry, please, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I, I'm not sure if I'm just the one, but your screen is frozen on my end.
Yes, I have noticed. I just noticed. Thank you.
Okay.
I think it's back up now, right?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. So I was trying to explain part specific middlewares. Understand? So where did you stop seeing my screen? And are you also following me?
I did not see when you're talking about the authenticate middleware. I did not see the part.
Okay, the auth middleware. All right.
Yes, for the
So I
book
said that
route.
Yes, thank you. So I think the reason why one of the reasons why we create separate routers for each top level route is because we want to implement certain controls, you understand, so that we know that okay, for this particular route, you understand, for this slash book route, any request coming into this route that is being handled by this book router should must be from authenticated users, you understand. And then, but for this other one now, this API router, any request coming in here now, anybody can just can view it. You understand? Anybody can view it. But for this case now, we want only authenticated users to be able to access this router, which is why I used the .use method here. Okay, this .use method is basically just configuring a middleware. You understand? So that's why I added it before I now define this the route handler for this slash root. So this slash root now, don't get it mixed up. Understand? It's basically going to be for slash book slash. Understand? This is because the request is already coming into slash book. Understand? So for the fact that that's entered there, it means the top level is slash book. Then this one is now slash or slash. So if this one is for like let's say um add let's say add book or list book since it's a get method list books. So this endpoint is now going to be list books. We call this 3000. Yes, and this is now going to be the endpoint. So whenever someone visits this slash list books, yes, and so this is even demonstrated. Request, response, length. Okay. This does also dot log here your books, right? There's no auth middleware. But let me just define it over here. Const auth middleware. What's the request, response, then also dot log only authenticated users can receive this this route. Okay. Like not connects. Very important that you connect. Then please restart our server. Yeah, you're good. Mm. And not close this. Okay. Root controller is not defined. Root. I need to get it from the other local media. Okay. Then it should work now. So programming is just basically you debugging. There's no rule that says you must get it right on the first try. Your job is just to create a working solution. So I'm trying to visit it now. So let's see it now. Okay, so I tried to visit root. The request got handled by this root controller. Okay, this one here, this controller. Hello world. You can see it, right? Good. But then I now want to visit our book router. I want to visit our book router. Let's see if anything. So to visit our book router now, where are we going to go? /book, right? Okay,
So
I think someone
book
wanted to
is
say
the part.
something.
The
Yes, /book. So visiting /book now will take us into this book router. So we now have an error that was thrown from this book router that wasn't even, it didn't execute before. So he said console is not defined. And where do we define console? Console here. Strange. Okay, I've seen the problem. So when we enter this book router, okay, that is over here, just follow the execution flow from one middleware to the other. It entered this auth middleware, understand? So when you enter this auth middleware, Expressjs now called auth middleware, and then which is the reason why the error got thrown after we visit /book and not when we visited root. Understand? At first, it was invisible because this auth middleware was not called. Understand? So it's just the whole execution chain. It won't execute any middleware if it doesn't have any business with that particular middleware. You understand? So this fix our error. Also.log, then start our server. On visiting /book again, you now see that the what's it called? Okay, we have an error now. Yes, the auth middleware now gets called. Then we now have, if I should check our log now, we should see only authenticated users can visit this route. And I'm correct. Only authenticated users can visit this route. Yet after that, auth middleware calls next, giving a go ahead to the very next this thing in the chain, execution chain. So we are seeing an error here, cannot get /book. Can you tell me why? This is everything that I think this is the only route that we configured for the book router. You're getting an error, cannot get /book. Someone should please tell us why.
maybe we are not authenticated.
Okay, that is not why, actually. The reason is because we did not configure any route handler for /book. Yes, we have /book here, you understand? we have slash book here. But then entering this book router, you understand, that's this like, let's say a prefix. This slash book prefix gets removed once it enters any router, you understand? So what is just saying, what this book router is just saying is just either slash list books, or it doesn't even see anything like slash book that was configured, you understand, before. So it doesn't see this. So what this book router was expecting was a root handler, you understand? So to fix this, we're supposed to have configured a root handler, you understand? Next, uh, also go root boot handler, root boot handler. Okay, let's visit it now and see. Okay, a root slash boot. So we can now see that only authenticated users can visit this route, which is from the auth middleware. And the next one is now this one, root boot route handler. That is this one here. So you understand what happened now? So, but if you should make the mistake of adding another slash book here now, understand? If you should make the mistake of adding another slash book now, thinking that it will handle requests coming into slash book, then you are wrong. We restart this now, it will still tell you cannot get slash book. You see? You understand? Except when you now add another book. It's funny, but that is just
No, your screen
okay.
is frozen again.
She's frozen again.
Yeah, when you are talking
Oh
about
no.
explaining um the handler, how the handler helps to view to fetch the books. That when you're explaining the handler part, it went frozen and I could not see what you're referencing.
All right, thanks. Fixing that now. Okay, so what was I saying? Initially, let me know this. Okay, so I tried to visit slash book, right? And I was getting an error. Cannot get slash book. Understand? Coming back to my book router, I noticed that yes, he actually went into his book router because I can see that the auth middleware um, 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 outputs to our console saying only authenticated users can visit this route. You understand? So this one got executed, but nothing else. But we still got an error. So from the error message, it just means that we did not configure a root for this book router. Understand? So any request coming into this book router, the Express.js is basically going to remove this prefix. Understand? Express.js is going to remove this prefix and it's just going to send in whatever is after book. Understand? Whatever is after API into this API router or book router. So the book router is not even aware of whether you use slash book or use slash anything that you just wrote here. The book router is not aware. Understand? All he just knows is that Express.js is sending in requests into the router and then it's now going to call every single middleware. That's just the way you have configured it. Understand? So it means that we just need to configure a book router. We don't need to configure a root handler. You understand? That any request coming into our book router on root get executed. You can also upload book group. Okay. Yeah, we will start our server. Let's visit the main root first. Then we'll now visit slash book. Oh. I did not give any response. Response dot send slash book something. Okay. Okay, so we now see our message here slash book over here. Understand? And you also check the console, you see the output for this alt middleware. And you also see the output for this book root. Only authenticated user can visit this route and then book root. You understand? This one. So basically, you want to really mess around with this a lot. You understand? That is the only way to get to understand the full experience. So let's visit this response that yeah, yeah, this. Okay, list which send. Why is this not getting found?
Why is it showing in the console and not on the page?
Yes, you noticed it as well. Here are your books, but just give me a minute. I think I didn't save the file. That I didn't save. I didn't restart the server after I added this. You understand? After I added this, I didn't restart my server. So it was still running on the previous the old code. Here are your books. Here are your books. I see it now.
Yes, but if it was running on the previous code, why did it still show in the console?
This one was already there. This console.log was already there.
Okay.
Here are your books. Before and now, I just added this one now so that we'll see something on the page. So that's just the thing. If you don't restart your server, Express would Node.js will still be using the previous code. So the code is usually loaded, you understand, before the application starts running. It just loads everything in memory. So even if you go now and delete this file now, you see you just remove this index.js file. This server will still be running. You understand? It will still be running. Because everything is in memory. Although some files it's not going to find some files. Like let's say when you want to serve static files, that's not like your index.js, I think index.js, your HTML files or your CSS files. Whenever someone should visit your application, it's going to throw an error. Static files not found. Because it's not something you should worry about now, Sha, because you're not going to be deleting your code. Why will you? So this is it. These books, here are your books. Okay. So that's for part specific middlewares. Okay. Okay. So and there's this inbuilt middleware called express.json. Okay. Or the express.url encoded middleware. So what do? They basically um, take in what is it called? They pass your request body, you understand? Let's say whenever users are sending JSON to your application in the request body, this express.json is going to pass that JSON object that is coming in. You know, at that point, it is a string, you understand? It is a string coming into your application that is being sent over the internet. But as soon as it hits your server, something needs to pass that JSON to know if it is valid. Understand? So that is the work of this express.json middleware. So express.json middleware passes that JSON object to know if it is valid. If it is valid, it now converts that JSON string into a valid JavaScript JSON. You understand? So that is the use case of this express.json. And also the URL encoded is the for form data. Understand? It passes URL encoded data that is being sent from the users from the client side. Understand? So it passes this and the URL encoded data. You know what URL encoded data are now? Like let's say name, when you have name equal to John, and you usually see this on websites now, and age is equal to 18, and um, height is equal to um, um, 5 feet. So something like this now. So that is the work of the URL encoded. The work of this URL encoded middleware is going to pass this kind of data, and is now going to present them as um, as a JSON object, understand, as key value pairs, so that you can now reference them like as JSON objects, say name dot or request.body.name, understand, to give you John, or request.body.age will now give you the age, or request.body.height to give you this. You understand? So that is what they are used for, and we'll be demonstrating it now. Let's move this into um, JSON. So can copy this one, this one. We do this. Okay. So to configure your Express app to use any of those request body passwords, you just simply say the Express app, understand, that is this main application here, Express app object dot use, then you take, you now get it from the Express object, or depending on how you imported it, understand, then express.json, or, and then for the second one, express dot url encoded. Okay, so let me open my Postman to show you how to. So for now, we let's only configure it for JSON objects. Okay, let me save this and then we start our web server. Login middleware is not defined. Got some of it. Okay. This is illegal. Is my screen still sharing? No. Okay. So you might be wondering what app I just opened. So this app is called Postman. Okay, and it's an application or it's a software we as developers use to test API endpoints. Okay, so you do not necessarily need the front end. Okay, my screen, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I should be able to see it now. So I actually opened this new application. This application is called Postman. You can download it on your systems, okay? Or you can access it from their website, from their web app using Chrome or any web browser you have. So this application helps us to test our API endpoints, whether it's on local host or is on any remote um, endpoint, you understand? So you can basically test your API endpoints from here, and it gives you flexibility to be able to like configure the request objects. You understand? You can um, you can configure the authorization headers, even the headers. You can also add custom headers. Okay, and then from here, I think they are actually adding 7 headers for us by default. So clicking it, we will see all the headers that they're adding for us, you understand, on our behalf. So this is everything. Yeah, we have the page control, postman token. Okay, okay, it's not sending this two, but it's sending this other file, post user agent accept encoding connection. Yes, so this are all the request headers. So opening
Sorry,
this,
sir.
I'm with you.
You said it's postman.com, right?
Yes, Postman. Just type Postman on Google. I don't know their website, but you type Postman on Google, yes, sir, it's going to come up.
So, but Postman is an extension in VS Code. Can we not just install it there?
Okay, you don't have extension in VS Code. I'm not aware of that, but if you can if you can use it with VS Code, then why not? I'm just not used to those VS Code and extensions. What am I looking for? The Node.js. Okay, or Node.js as is. This is replaced. The next is the HTTP. Okay, so you can also see the way they help you to um, the way they help you to form each the command, you understand, that executes the code. So they have the one for coil, this CURL, which is this one I've been using on my terminal since. Understand? This coil. I think I use it here. This is it. Coil. They have for different programming languages, P, JavaScript, P, Node.js, PHP, and the rest. So you can just copy it, you understand, and then you can fix it from the command line. So this proceed. So we were trying to um send a request body, okay? We configured this JSON, so we wanted to send a request body. Let's say app.post, using app.post to okay, can still use root or that's something new. App.post um test, okay, getting request response and next. Okay, so now I want to just console.log the request request body rather. That is request dot body. Okay. Then now the response.json, response.json, JSON, request.body, just the way it's coming and leaving us on the back. Understand? So we start the server. And now let's send the request. We change this ID and this. Okay. So now here we change the request body. I think the request method to post. Okay. Then we now input our URL. I configured it to test. So /test. Okay. So let me send this. Okay, so we got a status code of 200. So it was successful. The request was successful. And we in the response body, we are now seeing an empty JSON object. Okay, that is because, or let me add like a key to it. Okay, that's a data key to start, and then send. Okay, so now we now have a data and key, and then an empty request dot body. Understand? This request dot body over here is this empty response, is this empty object here, because we did not send anything in the request dot body. Understand? And this is the body here now. This is where we configure it. And here you can configure different types of request body. You can send a form data, you can send XWW form URL encoded, you can send raw text, okay, as text, as JSON, as JavaScript, HTML, whatever. We want to send it as JSON because we have added this middleware here to pass any JSON any JSON that is coming in our request body. Understand? So now we will now send a JSON object. And one thing is that if you don't write the correct what is it called? If you don't write a correct JSON um, body, you're going to throw an error. In fact, from here itself, you're going to be getting the error. You understand? Value expected. You understand? So Postgres is going to be giving you this error. Name John. You see age 18. It's fine. Before I added this, just after this comma, they are telling me that the trailing comma remove. So let's save, and we don't have to save, but send. Okay. Okay. We didn't convert this. We didn't stringify this before and console.log json.stringify. Okay. Anytime you see something like object on your terminal, you just know that you need to stringify the JSON object. Understand? You start the server and then send again. Okay. So we now have it here. Request body, name John, age 18. Okay. As this response.json. I also have the same thing here too on our postman. You can see it. So now let's try sending an invalid JSON object. Even postman is telling us that we need to remove this trailing comma. You send it, should break. So we say the syntax error, expected double quoted property name in JSON as position 23. Just all these annoying messages. You cannot start debugging this thing. So it's just best to know whatever Postman is telling you. Understand? Then moving it. But let's say we try to send another request body format. They send form data. Understand? Name is John. Age is 18. Understand? Let's send this now. But remember that we only configured passing for JSON. Understand? So send this and we'll see an error on our terminal. Okay, something is not right. Name, age, so, mm. Okay. It's not throwing an error, understand? It's not throwing an error, but at the same time, it is not even capturing the request.body. If you check this code here, this icon by the right-hand side, this code icon,
So
you
I
check
think
this code icon,
your screen
the
is
screen has
closing
gone
now.
on. Okay, thanks.
So you're muted.
Yes, I'm aware. Thank you. Okay, so if I guess you can now see my screen. So what was I saying? I said that, so I changed the, what is it called? The request body format from using Postman. I changed it from JSON into form data, understand, or URL encoded rather, into URL encoded. So I added two fields, name and age. So you can see that here is even Postman already ticked it that it's trying to, it is going to send these two fields. And to also confirm that I open this code over here, understand? And then in this code, you are seeing that Postman is sending the data, name, John, age 18, as the request.body, understand? But for some reason, when I click send, it is going to send an empty request body, understand? And it's also is in the console, we are seeing an empty request body, and also in the response here, response.json, it is also sending back an empty request body. So you know that this request body is actually empty. You understand? And you know why you're ready now. It's because Express.js was not able to pass the request body that we were sending, which is this URL encoded or form data. Understand? So that is the reason why we have to um, configure it express.url and encoded. Okay, have to configure it and tell Express that to be expecting this type of request body. And once it comes in, you want to pass it. Understand? Um, standard forms. Okay. Sending this now, we will now see a defined request body. Just the way we sent it, name and age, name John, age 18. So we now see why you must always make use of these two middlewares. You understand? You are always going to be configuring these two. You don't want to omit anyone because you don't know which request body format your front end dev or whoever will be sending requests to your API is going to be making. So you want to give them that flexibility to use whatever body request body formats you want to use. You understand? So you have to make your API very friendly to use. So I guess we're going to be stopping here. Okay. We're actually supposed to go to serving static files next, but I will just leave it for the next class. Or before we end, let me now introduce you to this third party. Or we'll just leave it for next class. It's just calls. Okay. The calls module. I don't know. They said that this call used to give them developers problem, but I'm sure it's not the backend developer. Usually the front end devs when their backend dev forgets to configure calls in the backend. Calls basically means cross origin requests. Okay, so I'll explain it
Sir,
better in the next class.
your screen is
I
frozen
can
up.
hear you. I've gone
Your
off.
screen is frozen.
Okay. Um,
But it's not frozen on my end.
yeah, it's not frozen yet. I can see that. I think it's back now. Yeah, it just went out. Let's all your songs, please. Yes, it does to you. But what's wrong with this thing?
Okay, so in this postman, if it's a gets method, we are going to change it to gets or any other
Yes.
method.
Yes, it gives you that flexibility to use whatever request method per request.
Okay.
Bye. Listen, let's now. Okay, all right. Thank you. So what was I even saying? I said calls, yes. So a lot of people usually complain that this calls gives developers headache. But it's not like it's actually something that should give anybody headache because it's just configuration. Once you add it, whatever library you use, like in this case, for we usually use this calls module, you understand? So you just configure it, add the middleware here, and then that's all. But in the next class, I'm going to be explaining um, what cause is and why you should always make use of it. Something as simple as this, and then maybe here you can now whitelist the URLs, understand? So that will be all for today's class. Thank you for joining, and we'll be seeing on Friday. Okay, that'll be all. Any question?
Okay, so the methods that you taught today, are they specific to Express? I will use it in JavaScript too.
What method? The request method, post, get.
No, the middleware in particular, the
The,
app that
the middleware is,
yeah, is it for just Express?
yes, it's an Express feature. All of these things, app.use, app.get, app.post, right?
Okay. Okay.
You see that we actually, I actually made use of it from the Express object. That is this Express that I imported here. You understand? You notice that I use it after creating the Express app here, and I use app.use, app.use, app.get,
Okay.
app.post.
Yeah.
Yes. So without Express, I wouldn't have been able to do all of this.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. So any other question? Good. So that will be all for today. Thanks for joining. I hope you have a great week. Bye.